the book of Kings. And as it says, obviously, it's the kings who are the main subject of these books. They are two books, but generally they are part of one scroll. Only that it was very big, so they separated the scroll into two books. So at this point, David is the king. Of course, he had taken over from Saul. And now he's very old, to the point of needing Abishag to take care of him and also to keep him warm. So Adonijah, his son, sets himself up as king with the support of Commander Joab and priest Abiathar. At this point, Bathsheba, who is Solomon's mother, and Nathan approached David concerning this matter, for he had promised that Solomon will be king after him. So priest Zadok and Nathan anointed Solomon. And Adonijah, upon hearing this, he was very afraid and indeed bowed down to Solomon, who had taken charge from David. And so Adonijah requested Abishag, who was David's caretaker, or to be his wife through Bathsheba. And Solomon was very mad. At this point, David has already died, and now Solomon decides that Adonijah must die for making such a request. Benaiah is the person Solomon uses. So Benaiah will kill Adonijah, and he will also kill Joab, who tries to flee away. He also kills Shimei, who broke the oath that he gave to Solomon. And so it goes on. Now Solomon is the king, and of course he rules wisely and builds the temple as the father had instructed him to do. So all the works were done. Solomon brought in all the things his father David had dedicated into the Lord's temple. So he built the Lord's temple and also the royal palace. The ark is of course brought to Jerusalem by the priests. Solomon makes a prayer in heaven that the Lord would hear them when they pray in the temple. And the Lord appeared to Solomon, telling him the consequences of obedience and disobedience. Many other things were built, like a wall, a Millo, and he also had a fleet of ships. He was a very wise man, and so even the Queen of Sheba came to Jerusalem to test the wisdom by asking questions, and Solomon proved to be very wise, and in this way he became very wealthy. The only problem is that he loved foreign women who actually turned him to other gods, and the Lord was very angry with him, and that is how the downfall of Solomon came, to the point where the kingdom also divided. So the son reigned on his place, and that is Rehoboam. So Rehoboam became the king. Then Jeroboam asked for the yoke of burden to be lifted. So King Rehoboam consulted. He consulted young men and old men, and he took the advice of the young men. So Jeroboam died and Nadab took over. Rehoboam died and Abijam took over. At this point, we have Judah and Israel being separated and now being led by different kings. So when this one is reigning on this side, there's another king reigning on the other side. So of course we go that way until to the point of Asa, and who at his point was the only king. And Elijah comes to the scene in this season, and he prophesies of a drought. He also encounters a widow's son, and then they get food from flour and oil. the Lord provides. And the famine comes. The Lord again told Elijah to present himself before Ahab, who was the king of that time, and he summoned Obadiah, a devout believer. Elijah tells Obadiah to inform Ahab that he's here. Obadiah is afraid. He had hidden prophets. So Elijah showed himself to Ahab, and Baal, for Obadiah had hidden about 450 prophets. So now the wife of Ahab, who is Jezebel, he threatens to kill Elijah, and he had to flee. So he was fed by angels for 40 days and 40 nights at Mount Horeb. So there are many wonders that Elijah actually performs. And then he will hand over, of course, to Elisha, who takes over the prophecy mantle. Ahab, with the help of his wife Jezebel, they took Naboth's vineyard. Elijah prophesied against them also. So many other works of Ahab are told until he dies in battle and his son takes over Judah. And Jehoshaphat also dies and his son Jehoram takes over. So we move into 2 Kings. At this point, Ahaziah, who's the king, sends a message to the Elijah to know if he will die, and Elijah tells him that of course he will die of the sickness he has. So Elijah and Elisha are now in transition, and Edom is defeated, even as Elisha had prophesied. So, and then there's Naaman, who had leprosy. He wanted to be healed, and he was told to go to ask Elisha for the same. And he was given an instruction to go round into the Jordan 7 times, and he would be healed. And indeed he did that as he was instructed. There's also other works of Elisha, like the Shunammite, who would survive 7 years of famine by Elijah's instruction. Also Hazael murders Ben-Hadad, the king of Aram. So there's a series of kings rising and dying. Most of the kings were disobedient to the Lord, and so the Lord was angry, and he would give them over to their enemies. At this point, where the kings have risen and fallen, with a few good kings here and there, the Lord is angry, and he gives them over to the Assyrians. Eventually, he lets them go into captivity under the Babylonians. So the book of Kings ends with them in captivity to the Babylonians. The temple is taken, it has been burnt, even the palace. It's a desperate place. That's the situation of the book of Kings. Let's see Chronicles and how it goes.